Hearne ISD parents and guardians, welcome to Equal Check-In. Today is Friday, October 15th, and we are so glad that you could spare a few minutes to get an update about all of the great things happening in Hearne ISD. Thank you so much for being a positive parent and tuning in. This is just a reminder that your students' attendance matters every day. Thank you for ensuring that your student is at his or her campus on time and ready to learn every day. We wanted to give you our contact information about today's presentation. We'll be discussing SPED and 504 and Emergent Bilingual Program today. If you have any additional questions about 504 or special education, you may contact me, Kimbra Friesen, at kwashington@hearne.k12.tx.us, or you may contact me by phone at 254-279-3341, extension 146. If you need additional information or have questions about the Emergent Bilingual Program, you may contact Mr. Arturo Reyes at AREYES@hearne.k12.tx.us, or you may contact him by phone at 979-279-3449. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some special education and 504 parent tips that you can use at home for your students to get them prepared for their educational success at any campus that they're attending, whether it's the Hearne Elementary Junior High, the Hearne Elementary, or Hearne High School. Okay, tip number one, make sure that you have a binder to organize any paperwork or any meetings that you attend for your student who has a special education IEP or a 504 plan. Try to keep a family calendar or of school events of all your special education meetings, all of your 504 meetings, or any conferences that you may have with your child's teacher. Again, I want to reiterate that it's a good idea to get a binder to make sure that you organize all of your students' SPED and 504 paperwork. And I would make sure that you would have all those meetings in sequential order. Parent tip number two, start a communication log. Keep track of all phone calls, emails, notes, meetings, any conferences that you might have, and also keep that in an area that is accessible. So when you are in contact with the teacher or in contact with the school, that you can jot your notes in that communication log. Be sure that you make sure you have the dates, the time, and the nature of the communication. Also, please, please, please make sure that you check the parent portal for updated information about your students' grades. Parent tip number three, review your child's current IEP or 504 plan. It is very important that you keep up to date with any accommodations that your student is getting for 504 or any goals or accommodations that your students are receiving for on the special ed side. So on the special ed side, your students may be receiving modified instruction. They may have certain accommodations. They may be going out to out classes that require them to have accommodations. So make sure that you're very familiar with your student's IEP. If you feel like that IEP or that 504 plan is not working, make sure that you contact the school. You can always schedule a meeting or a IEP review or 504 plan review to meet the needs of your kids if you feel like the current plan is not working. So if there's any concerns or if you think that the plans are not working, please, please, please reach out to your campuses. Parent tip number four, Keep everyone informed. If there is any changes going on with your student, whether that's a change of medications, if your student is showing signs of behavior issues at home that may result in them coming to school and having those same problems, please make sure that you keep your child's teacher informed. Any changes that you see at home or any situations or environmental changes that are happening at home, make sure you communicate that with your child's teacher so that your child's teacher is aware of what's going on. It is best to be proactive and honest so that your student is being served appropriately at school. So we like to work together and have a collaborative relationship with parents so that we can make sure that the students' needs are being met. Parent tip number 5, make sure you attend anything that is happening on campus. If there is an open house, if there's a back to school night, any parent-teacher conferences, any events or anything that's scheduled for your student's classroom, make sure that you're attending. Make yourself known. Make yourself an advocate for your child and have a working relationship with the teacher. So make sure that you're, attending events, meeting other parents, meeting other students. That way you're well diverse on what's going on campus. Tip number 6. Stay up to date on any special education news or any 504 news. There has been a lot of changes on the federal and state level, so it is very important to subscribe to any subscriptions that has to do with legislation with special education or 504. If there's any webinars going on, I would attend any webinars. They also have conferences out there, and they also have parent connect groups. So I would get connected with one of those programs so that you can stay knowledgeable on the laws for special education and 504. Tip number 8. Ask your child's teacher for any supplemental materials or any activities that they can do at home. It's also good to research some web-based educational resources that your child can do at home, after school, or on the weekends to stay abreast on their learning targets and their skills. And last but not least, it's always good to join a support group and develop connections with other families with similar situations or struggles. So those were just a few tips for special education and 504 supports for any student that is in the special education program or the 504 program. So now I'm going to turn over our presentation to our ESL specialist, Mr. Arturo Reyes, and he's going to give you some parent tips about how to support your emergent bilinguals. Mr. Reyes?
Good afternoon. So we're going to talk a little bit about very key things that can make a difference in emergent bilinguals or English language learners, and this can be support at home. And these also are tips there, but one very important thing is growing readers. So when we talk about reading and they come from a phonetic language, which is mostly Spanish, you need to pay special attention to the phonemes. It is all the difference between being able to learn and master a language if you have the phonemes or you don't have the phonemes. That's very, very important. So how do we do this during reading time at home? Well, we focus on certain sounds, especially certain consonants like the M in milk. So that will be like milk or snake, and make sure you make emphasis on those sounds for them to understand. Tell your emergent bilingual, your child, that it's important for them, if they're Spanish speakers, to stress the last consonant, because they're not really used to that, but that will help them a little bit more. Also with certain sounds like F, S, and M. So another tip, it's make learning memorable. And there's something similar in Spanish for this, where you say a series of words that have the same sound, and it repeats all over again, and that sticks in their memory for a long time. So like Miss Mouse makes marvelous. Silly Sally sings songs about snakes. That's all the S's. So these are examples of word games, that you can do with your child. Tip number 4, help your child listen for the sounds. And again, I cannot stress enough the importance of phonics and phonemes when learning a language. So they have to practice it, but also be attentive when they're listening, and they need to be looking for certain sounds, like words like moon, for example, and tell them to pay special attention to the vowel sounds, because that's a big difference between Spanish and English. Apply your sound skill to reading. Put these skills to work within a book. It's a powerful way to help your child see the connection between letter sounds and words. As you're reading together, find places in the book to point out the letters where you have specific sounds. And again, sounds like F, M, S. Those are important. Sounds we've been having fun with it at the beginning of the word. For example, in the case of the F, fish. Tip number 6, and this is besides like where you're working with them, is take control of television. It's difficult for reading to complete with TV and video games. Those are big distractions. So encourage reading as a free time activity. So not only, TV and video games. Be patient. When your child is trying a new sound, it's going to take him a little bit of time to master it, especially if this is an unfamiliar word for them. So remind the child to look closely for the letters in the word, and then give them time to master it, and to practice again until they master it. Pick up books that are at the right level for them. If you're going to try to give them books that are very hard for them, high level, they're going to struggle, and they're going to start disliking reading. So sometimes the books at the house, they're not the appropriate level. They're more for adults. But at the school library or at the city library, you can go and pick books that suit better their reading level. And finally, tip number 7, play word games. That's a good way for them to, again, pay attention to the letters, the sounds, and the words. There's another activity. It's called I read to you, you read to me. So in this case, and it's usually on small kids doing at bedtime, is when you practice reading, so you model the reading, and then you hear how they read back to you, and you're going to start seeing progress over time if you are consistent with this activity. Very important, gently correct your young readers. When your child makes a mistake, gently point out the letters he or she overlooked or read incorrectly. Many beginner readers will guess widely at a word based on the first or second letter. They see a pattern, they just go with it, but no. Again, tell them, look at all the letters in the word. The last day of the 6 weeks, November 4th, for students, November 5th is a student holiday. So some 6 quick reminders. Attendance matters every day. We need them here every day. Even if they come late, hopefully not, but it's rather have them here late than don't have them. Grades can be corrected. So check often for the grades. Allow wiggle room. Don't wait until the deadline to make a correction or to turn in the work. Stay on top of your student and make sure they're turning in the work on time. See you next week. Thanks again for listening to Eagle Check-in, excuse me. We hope this was helpful to you. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.